The NBA.com says Jones report is for the 14th. Well, we had exactly what we expected and moved to the 0% line because of the MBI weight lead. And there was just no recovery from a DOC standpoint. Shakeout was continuing. More significantly, we dipped below the red line. So even though we popped back up, um, still going to be heading back towards that low. The fact that also the MBI weight spiking doesn't bode well. The only thing that's holding things up, short-term buyers jumping in whenever they can find discount on that. And of course, everything was the talk of, banking contagion and regional, but the Fed supposedly saved the day, which, relatively speaking, all they did was just throw more inflated money at it. Doesn't really solve a whole lot of anything, but at least it may stave off bank runs. But I think that's still likely to take place because people think, well, just because it's been backstopped here, I'm going to look for alternatives in what some people would believe are a safer place. And so I think that it's going to impact a lot of regional banks, and then I think they're going to see deposits dwindling and or be forced. And now a lot of them, with the way their stocks have traded, certainly are takeover targets, definitely. NQ standpoint stayed above 50%, and we talked about that with a little bit of that steel on the DOC being enough to just keep it there, but still ugly from a shakeout. The precipitous drop here of the MBI white means that it really just wasn't all that much of an interest in attacking. So most of the selling was just either people exiting and looking for relief, and we would see that most likely here in TLT. And this is the problem I've been having back and forth with TradeStation again. Thought we had that solved, but it's started up. If we go to oil, um, bit of a decline, still in the middle range, bounced off the lows. Um, it's a reflection of this idea that economic activity is going to slow down, but there's still that battle between devaluation and even excess builds. And really, we're going to start, like I was saying, a few weeks ago, that this was going to be the time where data and things will start to give a clearer picture as to how stable the economy actually is, and or whether or not these interest rates are really starting to bite and have their impact. Because it takes a good 6 months plus for these things to really have an impact. Gold, that's skyrocket. There was never any question that that was going to happen. It was just a matter of how long they could suppress it and delay, because the evidence is pretty clear. Uh, you're going to have to continue to print massive amounts of dollars to cover the ever ballooning debt, and it's a vicious circle that goes nowhere but for devaluation. So less purchasing power, and there's just a huge demand for the physical metal at this particular stage from other central banks and that. And the euro's been spiking quite nicely. We're in the 107 range. And look at that, Bitcoin off of the bounce that we were talking about earlier, because again, where's your alternative? And crypto is it. And it's probably one of the bigger one-day moves in quite some time, at least to the upside. Pretty significant, and I think it's a clear indication of what we were, when I was talking about in this build that was taking place here was, the worst of everything has come through. All the sellers, got out where they could, and now you have a limited number of coins, and anyone who's interested is going to have to pay for the extra. And sure enough, that led to the original bounce getting us back up to what we expected was that 22 uh, 8 number here, but now clearly past it. Should push back towards its highs again there. That was a really precipitous drop of the DOC orange, and just a skyrocketing short-term buyers. Mid-term buyers are up. Everybody's in there. Will it get to a positive extreme and have to come back just a little bit? Even if it does, and with a move like this, you would expect some retracement unless it's just significant demand. And when you can see what was happening in treasuries, uh, even the ETH chart is down. Crazy stuff. Try and reboot it again. But TLT saw a huge jump early, and because just capital flight into it for treasuries, dropping then it completely faded off and finished down towards the previous day's close. And that's just an indication that this idea that they still keep talking about the Fed softening. I mean, we've been hearing that all year long, and it hasn't happened. So at a certain point, reality strikes, and uh, the people who are buying, bonds as they get discounted like this is crazy. You wait for it to normalize back to where it should be headed to get your higher return, because uh, I don't think they're done with their rate increases yet, because we still don't have numbers that inflation has been tamed, so to speak. So until that happens, I think people are just hoping, because they realize how ugly things can get in that hope, because there really is some problems, and no easy answers onto some of them. And so we're just going to have to keep following the charts. Still looking for continued weakness, even though we bought up off the 0 point. Um, that even for the year, because that's that white line was the start of the open for the year. So in this particular case, if you bought treasuries, you were ahead of where the market is for now. It's not a good idea. Anyway, that's just my opinion, because I just see that the potential for rates to continue to move higher just makes it a lose battle until you have evidence that there's a significant amount of faltering. But even if there's a significant amount of faltering, there's no guarantee that that's going to give them the opportunity. I mean, people have forgotten the stagflation era and the necessity for no growth, poor job opportunity situations, and also the inflation, and it just kept going. So I wasn't old enough at that time to know what the commentary was, but I do remember the effects of what was taking place during the time. As always, though, I will continue to update and try and get these charts squared away. It just keeps recycling back and forth. So I have to redo the same thing I did last time, which took forever, but I eventually got it. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.